Before I ever took my first programming class, there was a lot of periods in my life when, even though I was very interested in the tech industry, I let the overwhelming sense of everything that I was going to have to learn almost intimidate me to the point where I would just completely drop out of, whatever thing I had committed to, right? Today I'm going to share with you what that journey was like with me, and also I'm going to cover with you what your first programming class is going to be like at a very high level, just so that you can finally take action, pull the trigger on that journey that I know you want to take on. My name is Hector Pineda. I'm a software engineer. I graduated, got a full-time job, and I was able to get 2 internships before I even graduated. And I just want you to know that you can do this. You're capable of it. You just need to get past that barrier of committing to your first course, of committing to that first programming class. And you're going to see that, the monster under the bed was a lot scarier in your head than you made it out to be. So a little bit about me, right? When I really became interested in computer science, when I really kind of wanted to jump the gun in taking a class, was in 2014, right? At that time, I was 22 years old. It was a Python course I wanted to take. And unfortunately, that just wasn't something that I stuck with, right? Now, I know it was exactly in 2014 because I found a notebook, just a very old journal that I had. And when I saw it, I saw that I had actually started taking the class. It was an introduction to programming in Python. I had some notes written. I had written the date, and I only did a few videos worth of it, right? Again, just maybe, for whatever reason, I got discouraged. I didn't follow through with it, right? This happened again in 2017. I was 25 years old at the time. It was a Treehouse course. I don't know if you've ever seen that coding platform. It was a JavaScript course. Same thing. I think once I saw the videos, all the modules, all the things that I didn't know I was going to have to learn, just completely dropped it. Now, again, 2019, I had a friend that told me about the CCNA course. I could get into IT, could get certifications. Again, I was very, excited to start on that. But then at the end of the day, maybe the book was too big. Maybe the test seemed too overwhelming. I just dropped it and, went back to working other jobs. It wasn't until 2020 that I finally decided to go back to school, commit to, just getting a bachelor's in computer science. In between here, I was able to get 2 internships and, by the time I graduated, I had a full-time job waiting for me. Now, mind you, I'm very proud of myself for doing this. I'm not trying to talk down myself, but it did take me, I would say a significant amount of time, right? I graduated when I was 30. And mind you, I had dropped out of college multiple times. I changed my major multiple times. I had F's, D's in my, in my transcript. So it's not like I went back to college, super confident about that. But again, I think a key point here was I didn't know what I was going to learn in my first programming class. And I think one of the most nerve-wracking aspects at any point in my career was always just starting the class and not finishing it. And even when I went back to school for my degree, I remember that first programming 1 class, I was very nervous. What was I going to have to learn? Was I going to be good enough? All these doubts kept creeping into my head. So I just want to give you that really high overview of what your first programming class is going to be, right? So your first programming class is probably going to be Java based. Again, Java is very flexible. It's easy to learn. There's a lot of things you can do. A lot of, different parts of the industry use it. They've been using it for many years, so it's not going away anytime soon, right? So the first thing you're going to end up doing, right, is you're going to sign up, right? Any course, it doesn't matter. I don't care if you do it in, YouTube, community college, university, boot camp, you need to sign up. That's the first thing. It's going to be scary. I know you're going to think am I good enough? No, these guys are so much smart. Forget about all that. You just need to pick one, sign up for it. Even if you go to YouTube, I know, you can kind of get analysis paralysis really easily because there's this course is 4 hours. This one's 2 hours. And then as you keep scrolling down, some are 12 hours. So, search. If you don't plan on going to college, but you do want to commit, full to it, search it, pick the first top rated result. This one's 4 hours. You can knock that out. Even if you're working full time in a few weeks, a few months, I just want you to start. I want you to, commit to yourself to starting this thing. And here's the high level overview of what you're going to learn. Now, it doesn't matter what course it is, how long it is, just because one course is 1 hour and then one's 12 hours, doesn't necessarily mean that they teach you more. They might go a little more in depth with the examples. They might go a little more in depth with the assignments. They might walk you through some more problems than other classes do. But at the end of the day, for somebody that's a beginner and doesn't have any coding experience, what you're going to start with is going to be, the first time you write code, right? They're going to show you how to open up your code editor, how to install it, and show you how to run it. And, that's going to be a very basic thing. Now, it's going to be a very exciting time because, again, that's when you're going to start feeling like you're doing something in that field. Even if it's that simple hello world, you're still gonna feel like you're going in the right direction, right? You're gonna have that loading up on your screen, and the text is different colors, and you have VS Code or whatever code editor you're using, and you're just gonna start getting that, nice feeling of like, okay, I'm learning to program. After that, you're gonna learn data types. So that's gonna be integers, strings, floats, doubles. You're gonna learn about the different data types in that programming language, right? Now, maybe what I said doesn't make any sense to you. That's fine. You're just gonna learn how to write numbers in code form. You're just gonna write how to write, what they call strings or just words in the programming language, maybe Java, and how to input that into your program, right? So very simple stuff. So again, first they're showing you how to write code, then they're showing you how to input different types of data in that code, right? Again, so very, very linear, very straightforward. So once you learn how to, load up your code, how to write different types of data in your code, you're gonna start learning about what they call if-else branches and loops. So what goes into these really revolves around the logic that your code is going to use in order to do different things, right? So an if-else, I'm sure you've heard, even if you've heard very little about code, you've heard about if-else statements, right? So think of your code as a recipe, right? When you're making a recipe for something, all the directions you look into, all the directions for your recipe, whether you're making a cake, whether you're making lasagna, they come in order from top to bottom, right? You follow the steps to the recipe. The end result is the dish you're making. Same thing with code. When you're writing code, your compiler or the part of your machine that reads and translates the code and executes the code, it starts from top to bottom. Now, there may be different scenarios where, let's say you're checking for a winner in a game, right? Or let's say you're flipping a coin, right? You pick heads, I pick tails. If, you got heads, you win. If you got tails, you lose, right? It's an if-else statements. I know, very generic, very, oversimplified. But again, you're gonna be shown how to write decision types into your code. Same thing with loops, right? Again, when you hear the word loop, what do you think about? You think about something going over and over again, repeating itself. It's the same thing with code, right? A loop, you're gonna learn how to write, I guess you could call them procedures or, for directions that might be repeated in loops repetitively in code, right? Instead of writing the same code over and over again, which would be inefficient, you're going to learn about loops. So when you get to this point, right, it does seem a little bit, I would say, maybe a little daunting to go. It feels like it's moving quickly, but again, it just gets, if you're really enjoying this kind of material, it just gets more exciting, I would say. It just gets more engaging for you too. Now, last thing you probably learn about in your introductory class is going to be about methods and classes. So as you're writing programs, as you're writing all these lines of code, I'm sure you've seen the code editors. They have, all these very, people have like 2, 3, 4 different monitors. They're all very, hundreds and thousands of lines of code. So is it just one, is it just one big file? Is it just one big, text editor of code? Like, no, you're going to learn about how different files of your code interact and relate to one another. In Java, these are called classes. And now sometimes you don't want to be writing the same code over and over again to get one of your code files to talk to the other one. No, that's when you start writing methods, right? And depending on the language, those might be called functions. Again, maybe that doesn't make any sense to you. Maybe you kind of know some of the words I said. Maybe you already knew them. Doesn't matter. I just want to give you a very basic overview of what you're going to learn in this class. Now, let's say you take that class that was in Java and you learned all this. And now that you know all this and you saw how much there is to learn, well, now you're at this weird spot where you feel even more overwhelmed because even though you learned all these things, now you're just more aware of how many different languages there are, how many more things there are to learn. But the really amazing thing is that these basic concepts that you learn for whatever language you learn for are going to apply to the next language you learn. So if you learn C afterwards, if you learn Python, if you learn JavaScript, many of these core concepts, even though they're written, slightly different, they're going to still apply in the same way, right? And they're going to have their pros and cons. They're going to have other features. Now, depending on the language you use, you're going to learn, you might be using that language specifically for those features, but it's going to be the beautiful thing about you learning, to code, to program, about you learning about computer science, that the more you learn, the more you're going to be able to amplify the speed at which you can learn other different things, right? And that should be the thing that gets you really excited about this kind of field. You're never going to be at a point where you feel like you know everything. You're never going to be at a point where you feel like the things you're doing are, just tedious and repetitive, right? There's always going to be something new to learn. There's always going to be a better way to try and do things and test things. And that's going to be the real reason why you end up loving the major, loving the field and wanting to find a job for an industry that you like, right? So I think that's as high as an overview that I can give you. I hope this provided you some clarity. If you're still, at that spot that I was, back when I was 22 years old, where you kind of sign up for things, you don't stick with it, or, and I get it, it can seem overwhelming. Like, this is all it's going to be, and this is the simplest way I can put it. Like I said, if maybe I went through this a little too fast, maybe a lot of these things didn't make sense, maybe now you feel more overwhelmed, I encourage you to join my Discord, send me a message. Any questions you're going to have about this, I'd be more than happy to answer. One of the things that I do kind of regret about this, I don't regret how long it took me. Like I said, I worked very hard. I'm very proud of myself, but I do wish that I had reached out a little more, right? For whatever reason, maybe I was trying to figure it out. Maybe, I was being a little arrogant, thought I could just do it on my own. But, now I learned the hard way that wasn't it. That wasn't the way to do things. So thank you for watching, and I do wish you the best of luck on your journey. Join my Discord and have an awesome day.